Today we're looking at the Garmin Alpha Combo with TT15 collar. The Garmin Alpha is a combination GPS dog tracking system and remote dog trainer. The dog wears the TT15 collar, which is a GPS receiver. It picks up the signals from the satellite, plots them, and then sends them back to the Alpha handheld via radio signal. The Alpha handheld is also a GPS system, so it knows where you are. It takes the radio signal and then plots it on the map so that you can see where the dog is in relationship to you. And it does this as fast as every 2.5 seconds. This allows you to keep up with your dog and know what he's doing when he's outside of visual range. The Garmin Alpha is also a remote training collar. The handheld is a remote transmitter. It allows you to send signals to your dog, make corrections, train while you're in the field. Also allows you to send both tone and vibration signals to the collar. Let's take a look at the Alpha 100 handheld. The Alpha 100 is designed for use in the field. It's waterproof and it's very rugged. It has a rubberized casing so that you can easily grip it. It's got 2 antennas. This is your GPS antenna. It picks up signals from the GPS satellite and plots your location on the map. This is your RF antenna. This antenna picks up signals from your dog collar. It also transmits signals using the remote trainer. The majority of the controls on the Alpha 100 handheld are via touchscreen. Garmin's been doing touchscreens for a long time. They're pretty good at it. This system is also glove friendly, and what that means is that you can control the touchscreens while wearing gloves. You've got 3 buttons across the top. Those are for controlling the dog training portion of the system. On the side, you have an on-off switch, and this is also a quick access button so that you can see your backlight and control the level of your backlight. Also allows you to see what kind of battery life you've got left in your handheld. The battery for the unit is on the back. Open up the casing. You've got a rechargeable lithium-ion battery. Pop the battery out. There is a card slot for an SD card so that you can add additional maps and add extra memory to the unit if you need it. Put the cover back on. Has the Garmin backbone, which the backbone system allows you to use multiple kinds of clips, places to hold on to yourself. You can attach it to your vehicle, you can attach it to yourself, all sorts of different things you can do with the Garmin backbone system. On the bottom here we have the charging port. And this is also where you connect your USB cord so that you can update the software and also download your tracks to your computer. And then on the very bottom of the unit we've got a lanyard attachment. That way you can tie the unit to your vest in case it falls off. You knock it off while you're out in the field. That way it will still be tied to you and you won't lose your handheld. All right, let's talk about the touch screen on the Garmin Alpha. If you've never used a touchscreen before, it's pretty simple. All of your icons are on the menu. It allows you to move back and forth between your screens. You've got your map screen, you've got your compass screen, you've got your home screen. And these are your icons, allow you to move back and forth between your menu settings. You can mark locations. Everything that you need to do is on your touch screen. Let's talk a little bit about the customization of the screen. What's nice about a touchscreen is that you can move the icons around depending on which ones you use the most often. So you've got 4 right here on the main home menu, and you can change those depending on the ones that you need the most. And that's an advantage so that you don't have to have things in your way. Allows you to pick and choose which icons you're going to have at your easy access. The Alpha 100 runs off a rechargeable lithium-ion battery pack. Runtime on that typically varies between 20 and 24 hours. A lot of that's based on how much of your backlight you're using. There are several different battery saving features that can help you extend that and get the full 20+ hours. It takes about 4 hours to recharge it. And this battery pack is also user replaceable. If you need to, you can order an additional pack and then switch them out as you go. All right, now let's talk about dog tracking in the Garmin Alpha. You have 2 screens that you use when you're dog tracking. You have a map screen and a compass screen. The compass screen shows the dog's distance from you and it shows what the dog is doing. It uses a line to show you which direction the dog is from you, and then you also have your distance marker. And this allows you to keep up with multiple dogs on the same screen, know where they are, how far away they are from you. The map screen will show your location in the lower middle section of the map, and then it will show the dog and also show his trail as he's moving so that you can tell where he's been and which direction he's headed in. Depending on what you're looking for, you can move back and forth between these two screens. I typically keep it in the compass screen unless I need to know where a dog's been or if I want to see which direction everybody's moving in at the same time. Looking at the map screen is a little easier that way. In the map screen, the Alpha comes preloaded with a 100K topo map. 100K topo map is going to show you all roads, and it's going to show you waterways and elevations. It's a great map, very handy for everywhere in the United States. The advantage of having a topo map preloaded into this unit is that not only can you see as a dog is approaching a road, you can also see if they've crossed water, tell which side of the water they're on, and it helps you if you have to move to a certain spot to go to a bridge crossing. It's just a great feature, allows you to keep up with where your dog is and see all of the things that you're dealing with in the areas that you're hunting. New this year in the TT15 combo is a free 1-year subscription to the Bird's Eye satellite imagery. And Bird's Eye is a little different than what you get on a topo map. It's actual satellite imagery that you can see your dogs running on. This shows you trees, buildings, roads, waterways, everything that you would get from a standard satellite image, and then your dog's image is overlaid on top of that. You are able to switch back and forth between the Bird's Eye and the topo maps depending on what you need. You move back and forth very easily. You can also cut maps off by decluttering the map if you just want to see the dog without any sort of background image. The Alpha also has the ability to use Garmin's Bird's Eye satellite imagery. If you buy the Alpha handheld and would like to add that to it, it's a subscription-based service. You order it and then add it to your handheld, and it allows you to see satellite imagery on your map screen and see your dogs and how they relate to trees, roads, waterways, buildings. Everything that you would see in a standard satellite imagery is included in the Bird's Eye package. Let's talk a little bit about the tracking range of the Garmin Alpha. Garmin lists the line of sight range of this system at 9 miles. In my experience, that's a little unrealistic. Line of sight means that there is nothing between you and the dog. And there just aren't many situations where that's going to happen in the field where we're hunting. Range varies depending on all sorts of conditions. Weather plays a major role, terrain plays the biggest role. Anything like trees, buildings, anything that's in between you and the dog, power lines can play a huge role in affecting range. So it's very difficult to say you're going to get this range on a regular basis. Typically, I can easily get with just a standard antenna and the standard antenna on the collar, getting anywhere from 1 mile to 1.5 miles is very easy with the Alpha. Depending on what kind of terrain you're dealing with, sometimes you can get more. For a lot of folks that are running bird dogs and beagles, that's plenty of range. For folks that are running big running hounds, though, that's not enough. You have several options to increase your range. One of the things is that the handheld comes with a long-range RF antenna. To replace the antenna, you remove the standard antenna, and then you add in the long-range antenna. It's a long-range whip antenna. It's flexible, it's tough. For a lot of folks, especially my hound guys, you're better off to just going ahead and put this antenna on and never use the shorter antenna. The other option that you have is using a long-range car top antenna. We sell several different styles. What this is it's a magnetic mount antenna that goes onto your vehicle, and then it has a cable that attaches to your handheld. This will drastically increase your range and allows you to track your dogs while you're working out of a vehicle. I've gotten 6+ miles using one of the car top antennas that we sell. It was in perfect situations, but it was great as far as being able to locate a dog that was a long, long way from me. Now, one of the things about the range signal with your dogs is that if the handheld loses contact with the dog, it's going to do a couple of things. First, it's going to mark the dog's last known location, and then it's going to give you a warning that says it's lost communication with the dog. Now, it's going to continue to look for that dog the entire time without you having to do anything. When this happens to me, I immediately start to head in the direction of that lost dog. Majority of the time, I'm going to reacquire that signal before I get to the marked location and start tracking the dog again. There's nothing to it. Or I'm going to go to that location and we're going to find him and we're going to pick him up. That's one of my favorite features about the Alpha Tracker. The Garmin Alpha can track up to 20 collars or 20 Alpha handhelds. Not only can the Garmin Alpha track dogs, it can also track other Alpha handhelds. If you're hunting in a party and you have folks that are separated from each other, you want to be able to keep up with the other hunters in your group, all you have to do is add their Alpha handhelds to your handheld. And because the handheld is not only a receiver, it's also a transmitter, you'll be able to see your buddies on the screen and know where everybody is all the time. You can also send and receive text messages via the Alpha handheld. The Alpha will track up to 20 dogs. To keep up with all those dogs, it allows you to have different colors for the different collar straps. When we sell you a multi-dog system, we're going to include different colored collar straps, and that way you can match the collar strap up. You can also name all of the collars. So keeping up with 20 dogs on a handheld can be tricky, but there's several ways that you can do it to help you keep up with who's who. Not only is the Garmin Alpha an excellent dog tracker and a remote trainer, it's also a full-blown GPS handheld. It has all of the features that Garmin has in its standard outdoor handhelds. You can mark locations, you can mark coveys, you can mark trees, you can mark hunting camps. It allows you to mark your vehicle, truck and ATV. It's a great way just to mark any location that you need to be able to return to. Tree stands, blinds, hunting camps, anything that you need. It's also got outdoor icons so that you can easily mark everybody, mark your locations and know where everything is and keep up with it on your map. You can also download all of these trails back onto your computer so that you can look at where you've been and mark your trails. The GPS system also uses GLONASS, which GLONASS is the Russian version of GPS. What this does is it allows you to both use United States satellites and the Russian satellites. The advantage there is it just gives you more satellites to pull from. It allows you to acquire a signal much quicker. Now let's talk a little bit about the e-collar features of the Garmin Alpha. The Garmin Alpha uses Tritronics technology. It is an 18-level continuous and momentary system. It has tone, and using the TT15 collars, it also now has vibration. The e-collar section of the Alpha is incredibly customizable. You have multiple ways to set it up depending on what you prefer. There's two different styles of setup. There's a basic setup, which allows you one screen per dog, and it gives you a continuous, one button for continuous, one button for momentary, and then one button for tone or vibration. And then you have a customizable setup that allows you to either have multiple levels per dog or to have multiple dogs. So you can have dog 1, dog 2, dog 3. Or if you want to have different levels per dog, you can have a 1 on this button, a 5 on this button, and then a 10 on this button. You could also have stem level, and then tone and vibration. It allows you to go through and customize it depending on what you need. The nice thing about this system is that it is fully customizable. You can go through and figure out what you prefer, and you can set up the system in the way that you like to train. The unit is a 18-level system. There are two different styles of stimulation choice. Using the traditional Tritronics method, it's a 6-level collar with a low, medium, and high choice. Or you can have what's called a linear setup, which gives you 18 levels. So it's the exact same information, it's just how you look at it. If we ever have complaints about the Alpha system, it has to do with the touchscreen setup on the e-collar portion. And I'm not really sure if complaint's the right word. It's just a setup that doesn't always fit some people, myself included sometimes. The way the touchscreen works, it allows a lot of customization, but to change levels, change dogs, it requires that you look at the screen a little bit more than some folks want to. If you are an old school user and you are used to buttons and dials and toggle switches, the Alpha may not be the right e-collar for you. It took me a while to get used to it and to find a setup that worked for me. There are a lot of situations where I really like it, but there are a lot of training situations where I'm not able to change levels as fast as I would like to. So I caution folks, depending on how you use the system, how many dogs you're training at one time, you want to definitely look at some of the touchscreen features and see if it's the right choice for you. Let's talk about what's new in the TT15 collar. There are three things that are different from the TT15 over the T10 collar. The TT15 has a vibration feature, allows you to control it as part of the dog training system. Allows you to vibe the dog. It's a non-stim feature. The TT15 collar uses GLONASS, which GLONASS is the Russian version of GPS. So it uses both American GPS satellites and the Russian GPS satellites. The benefit of having GLONASS is that it allows you to lock in on satellites faster since you have both US satellites and Russian satellites to pick up. The third thing that is different on the TT15, it is now compatible with the Garmin Astro collars. Now, the thing you've got to know about that is that the TT15 can either be an Alpha collar or it can be an Astro collar, but it can't be both at the same time. So if you need to track your TT15 collar on a Garmin Astro, you can match it up to the Garmin Astro, but once you do that, you will not be able to track it with an Alpha handheld. The other thing to note is that when you're tracking with an Astro handheld, you have no remote training features whatsoever. It's strictly a tracking collar. All right, let's talk a little bit about the anatomy of the TT15 collar. You have your base here, controls your battery, all the electronics for the unit. You have the sleeve here that the collar strap runs through. The collar strap is a removable piece. It's user replaceable, so that way you can have different colored straps when you're running multiple dogs. And the sleeve, not only does it keep up with the antenna and the collar strap, it also runs the wires up to your GPS antenna. What the GPS antenna does is this is where it's picking up the satellite information and transmitting it down to the electronics. Then you have your RF antenna, which your RF antenna is a stainless steel braided cable. They're extremely tough, hold up really well. You've got two choices when it comes to these. This is the 22.5-inch antenna. Then it also comes with an 18.5-inch antenna for folks that don't need quite as much range and want a shorter antenna. It's about 4 inches shorter. On the body of the collar, you have your LED light, which tells you when the collar's on and tells you how your battery's doing as far as it's a green light. As it starts to get lower, the light changes colors. And then you've got your running lights, which you can turn on and off at the Alpha transmitter. So if you're running at night or if you're running in low light conditions, it just helps you see your dog a little bit better, also lets cars see them a little bit better. Got your on-off button. And then you've also got your contact points, which these are the regular points. These are removable, and it comes with the longer probes for dogs that have heavier coats. You can switch those out and go with a long probe. On the back of your collar, you have your charging ports. This is where you take the clip and clip it to the collar. It's a metal contact surface, so there's nowhere for dirt or debris to get. So it's really easy to charge your collars. Let's talk a little bit about battery life. Battery life on the TT15 collar varies depending on several factors. The biggest one is update rate. Update rate is how often the collar is sending its location signal back to the handheld. The Alpha has the fastest update rate of any of the Garmin products at 2.5 seconds. What that means is every 2.5 seconds, it's sending a new location to the handheld, so it gives you more information as far as what your dog's doing. You can change your update rate to a slower update rate. You have several options, a 5-second, a 10-second, a 30-second, and then a 2-minute update. Changing the update rate lowers the amount of information that you have, but it will extend your battery life. Now, myself, I'm going to run this collar in a 2.5-second update because I want the most information that I can get. I want to know where my dog is and what he's doing, and as often as possible. So I'm going to go with a 2.5-second update rate. Typically, I'm going to get around 24 hours of runtime using a 2.5-second update, but that's going to depend on some factors. A couple of things that can change your battery life are running the beacon lights and how much you use the e-collar. Another feature of the Garmin Alpha is rescue mode. Rescue mode is designed to extend your battery life when the percentage of the battery gets extremely low. You set rescue mode in the handheld, and once the collar gets down to 25% battery life, it changes the update rate from whatever you have it set to the longest update rate, which is 2 minutes. And what that does is it slows down the information that the collar is sending, but it will drag your battery out just a little bit longer. The idea behind that is that once your battery gets that low, at this point you're no longer hunting, you're strictly looking for your dog to pick him up, and we're trying to make the collar last as long as possible. I like to point out to folks that a full battery is the most important thing. There are few things more worthless than a tracking collar whose batteries have run out. So when I run my collar today and I know I'm going to run it again tomorrow, I go on ahead and charge it again to get a full charge on it. I want the longest possible battery life that I can get, and charging my collar every day is the best way to do that. Let's talk a little bit about the differences between the Alpha TT10 collar, which was the original Alpha collar, and the new TT15 collar. They actually look identical, and that's because they are. The only way to tell the difference between one and the other is by removing the collar strap and looking underneath the collar. It'll tell you if it's a TT10 or if it's a TT15, but there's no other difference in the physical appearance of the collars. There are a couple of things about the collars, though, that are different, and it really just depends on what you're doing as to whether or not that's going to matter to you. The first thing to point out is GLONASS. The TT15 collars uses GLONASS, which GLONASS is a Russian satellites. So you've got both US GPS satellites and then the Russian GLONASS satellites. The advantage there is that you're going to get a lock much faster with a TT15, and you're going to have a substantially larger number of satellites to work with. That's a pretty big deal, and for a lot of folks, especially when you're running in places with a real heavy canopy, this can be an advantage. So that's a big deal. The other two things just kind of depend on whether or not it matters to you. The TT15 has a vibration option, and that is part of the remote training. So you have continuous, momentary, tone, and vibration. Vibration is just like a pager, causes the collar to shake when you press the button. It's a non-stem communication. You can do all sorts of cool things with it. And one of the advantages, especially for folks that have used tone as a silent command, they can now teach vibration as a different command. So if you're into that sort of thing, then there's some value there for you. The third thing is that the TT15 is compatible with the Garmin Astro. The TT10s are not. Now, I like to point out that it is a situation where the TT15 is either an Alpha collar or an Astro collar. It cannot be tracked by both systems at the same time, but it is a cross-compatible system, and you can move it back and forth if you need to. For Alpha users, there's just not really a big advantage there. That's more of a situation where Astro users will have an advantage there, but it's something to point out. So while the TT10 collars are still around, and if you can save a little money on them, for a lot of folks, it's better to stick with the TT10s. Eventually, you'll have to upgrade to the TT15s, because once the 10s go away, the 15 will be around. But it's not something that's necessary for everybody. All right, let's take a look at the difference between the DC50 collar and the new T5 collar. There are two differences. The T5 has the beacon lights. Beacon lights light up on the collar. For folks that are running their dogs at night, it's handy. It's good for low light situations. If your dog's out running, he may be close to a road. Some advantages there. The T5 is also compatible with the Alpha. The DC50 is not. Now, It can either be an Astro collar or an Alpha collar, but the T5 is not both at the same time. You cannot track it with an Astro and track it with an Alpha at the same time. It's either an Astro collar or an Alpha collar. These are the only two differences. If you do not care about the beacon lights, and if you have no plans of running an Alpha anytime soon, there is no major advantage to buying the T5 collars. The DC50 collars are less expensive, and they have almost the exact same design. They run off the same system. So if you're running Astro 320s and you have no plans of running an Alpha anytime in the future, the DC50 is a better buy.